Alright, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another day of Ragnarok here in Wizard101 because I think I have finally just about completed the most diabolical resist build that you could possibly do. Now, when it comes to resist builds, you would expect the universal immunity build that has been found. However, I think that even though this build is not fully universal immunity, it is close. I can get like 5 schools immune, with like 2 of them being close, like 94 for the ones that aren't. The ones that are immune are higher, and I could stat cap 3 at a time.
Bruh.
Yes, in case you didn't know, there is a stat cap for resist as well. It's not just damage, it's not just pierce. Turns out resist has a stat cap too, which I have found. I will go ahead and show you now. The stat cap for resist is 120 in PvE. For advanced combat, that changes to 97. So you cannot immune in advanced combat. But you can get very, very stupidly close. And as you can see, the only schools I don't have immune to right now are Ice, Life, Shadow. But I could theoretically switch what one of the immunes is. I could switch this balance immunity to be Life, or I could switch it to be Ice. Fortunately, the Shadow stuck there forever, but hey, what are you gonna do, right? Either way, let's get into the build. So with this build, you are sacrificing about 6% resist overall in favor of about everything else that I'm going to show you. Which, by the way, if you're looking for the right, like, fully universal immunity build with everything at 100 plus, I'm going to link a video in the description below by my goats, Cornboard Tech. Y'all my goats. Keep doing your thing. I love y'all. This is going to be my point of view of what I think is the right resist build. So to start, we do have some damage. We have 122 damage, which is passable. It's not great, but it's passable. And you see I have 114 to death, and that's because I have pins to death right now. So that's how I got those, which I will show everything as we go. But to start off, I have almost 16,000 health, which is about 1 to 3,000 more than the universal immunity build has. So I do gain about 3k health as a trade-off for losing this 6%. I do lose like 1 accuracy to ice, but I still can't fizzle. But with what I did, I do gain this 17% death resist, not resist, accuracy. What am I talking about? Because I have 17% death accuracy now, I cannot fizzle whenever I decide to weave. But yeah, this 120, this is stat capped. I cannot get this like any higher, and it would take a bunch just to get it to 121. Keep that in mind if you're building resist. Of course, the crit is like almost non-existent, but let's be honest, crit's not that great anymore ever since they not only changed it to be a scaled value based on the enemy block, but there's actually a thing that's been going on, which I call ghost block. Ghost block is when you crit, but yet the actual critical value doesn't go through. We've seen this exist because if you go into Arc 1 and you use like an AoE spell, let's say, you can see that sometimes there will be times where you can go in, you can cast like your AoE, you'll get the crit, but then one enemy takes like 3,100 damage and the other one only takes like 1,600. That is ghost block. So because of that, that kind of killed the stat. This block rating though, I have so much block right now that it's breaking the freaking UI. Like, you can't even read it. But what the actual number is 1,037. Or to some schools, 1,097 based on a certain item. I do have pretty decent pierce. I have 35 pierce to ice, 31 to death, and that's not even fully complete. That's not even with the right stuff on, actually. I think I'm wearing something wrong right now, which I will switch all that out. I do have some incoming healing as well here. So anytime I get healed by like an actual heal spell, like a pixie, a fairy, a satyr, it's doing 20% more healing to me that way. For Pip Conserve, it's passable, it's decent. I can sometimes conserve. It's not super often, but it's enough. My Pip chance is almost perfect. I did sacrifice getting the perfect Pip chance in favor of getting accuracy for weaving. And I did that because I don't want to fizzle if I decide to use my death stuff. Which, when I did the Blower solo, I did not even have the death weave set up at all, actually. Like, I had the pins, but I didn't have the spells, and I didn't have the actual stats. I didn't have the pierce or anything. So I was running that Blower fully with the ice stats. But yeah, this 98% pip chance, it's almost perfect. I don't pip fail very often, but when I do, I could always use a 1 pip spell, like a triple blade, like elemental blade, stuff like that. To be honest, if you happen to pip fail and you have like an elemental blade, you may as well use it just to use the failed pip. In a way, you kind of get more value that way, actually, if you think about it. Because if you can't pip fail and you're having to play like support, like this build will do, then literally you're having to spend 2 pips to cast a 1 pip spell. Think about it that way. As for the shad rating, the default is 90, but I do have 123 because of the 2 monster hide items that I have on. For Archmastery, the default is 144, but because of my deck, I'm up to 209. That's pretty much that. So we're going to look at all the gear. For this one, I am wearing the Chilling Monster Hide Crown. This is one of the items that you sacrifice a little bit of that universal resist in favor of getting the other stats. For example, this has about 600 to 700 more health, for example. I think it has more block, and it actually has stats on it, like accuracy, like pierce, like shad rating. It even has damage. This is where I got the 12% storm resist pin. This is a shield pin, all that stuff. And as you can see, my sword pins for death are not crit and damage, they're actually pierce and damage, because lately, because of how they cook the ever-living hell out of the crit stat, pierce really rose up to be the secondary offense stat now. Like, you get so much more value from having higher pierce than you would if you went higher crit. Back in the day, crit was king, but now not so much. So this 20 resist, this is like the second highest resist in the game behind the Jade, which is only 110. When you get this, by the way, where you get this hat is you have to get the Abomination hat first, because you cannot farm and loot the Monster Hide. You can only farm and loot the Abomination, which you can see has way less resist. This is more if you're going for hitter. This is the hitting version. The Abomination, you actually have to get from our boy Blower in the last dungeon of Darkmoor. So if you're looking for the hat, go to Blower, do your stuff there, try and get the Abomination. And then you can either keep Abomination if you want to hit, or you can use Monster Hide if you want to go resist. That's what I recommend. Also, it gets a Tower Shield card too, so that's always nice. Makes it to where you can counter Pierce with that. The Fitsumi Survivalist gear. This is the new, at least for Ice School, the new King of Resist robe, Undisputed, because it has the exact same amount of resist as Jade, and you get all the other stats with it, such as getting close to 2,000 health. You get a good pip chance, you get a pretty solid block, and you get actual stats. And you see I got the pins there, including where the power pin is death accuracy. Now, in terms of the actual accuracy stuff, because this setup can only use 2 power pins instead of 3, I can only get 95% accuracy to death normally. That's where a different thing will come in later. But yeah, this is your new king. Like, it's undisputed. It's even better than Abomination in terms of hitting too, because it gives that little bit more damage. You do lose 1 pierce, but you gain 3 damage, so it's really whatever you feel like doing. Abomination gives more accuracy too, but with this setup, you don't even need the extra accuracy. You could if you want to, but I think this is just the way to go, honestly. Where you get this, by the way, you get this from the Hidden Temple Gauntlet, the most recent gauntlet that came out. So if you're wanting this, this is one of the 2 items that you want. If you're going for a resist build, and really if you're going for good gear altogether, this and the amulet are your 2 pieces that you want when it comes to Hidden Temple. Once you get those, you don't necessarily need anything else from there, unless you want like the Stitch or something. That could be neat. Then we have the Monster Hide Stompers. This is the new highest resist boot in the game. This surpassed Jade at 17. This surpassed the Rockstar Kicks from the Battle of the Bands, which has 18. This beats it by 2%, and you get all these other modern stats, like the block, like the health, like actual offense stats, like the shad rating. This is where the other power pin is at, and you can see I have a death resist pin there as well. This also drops from Blower in the same place where you get the hat. And if you want to get the Monster Hide, just like the hat, you have to get the actual Abomination with shoes, like which are these, and then you have to turn this into the Monster Hide. I have both because I was able to get a couple of these, so I just turned one of them into Monster Hide. Now you know where to get the clothing pieces. This one is pretty subjective, the wand. And you might be thinking, what the hell? Why the hell are you using the Road Legend Skull? The level 130 wand from the Spellamental Road Warriors pack. Which, that is where you get this, by the way. It's from that Spellamental Road Warrior pack. I'm using this because it has a set bonus on it. And this set bonus, this gives 3% resist. And that resist could actually be kind of worth it. This is partially what helps me make up for the fact that I'm losing resist in other places. Now, the stats on this one aren't really huge, except for like the pierce and maybe the ice damage. But really what you want on this is the square socket. You could use the Arcanum crafted wand as well for the extra health, but you do lose out on that Cold Rider set doing that. So it's really, do you want the 3% resist from the Cold Rider set, or do you want an extra 800 health? Both are really good, and it's really subjective. I opted to go with the set bonus to get the resist. But you could do the Monster Hide if you wanted, just because. Could even do this. Abomination's pretty good too, so it's really up to you what's best for you. But for me, I'm using this because of the set. For this, I could have either went Heartsteel, which is 5 resist and 45 health, or I could have stuck to the Modern Abomination theme like I did here. And the reason why I did this is because 1, I get 2,000 health, 1,300 from the piece, 800 from the jewel, so I get way more health. I get all that pip chance, I get the block, I get the damage, I get the pierce, and you see that my tier socket there is an item card of Sharpened Blade. Now, for anyone that doesn't remember, or it's been a while, or if you're coming in for the first time, for anyone who hasn't seen an item card Sharpened Blade, this stacks with the normal Sharpen. So I can literally use all 3 of these Weave Blades in one go, because I can use the normal one, which is just a 45. I can use the normal Sharpened Blade to sharpen 1, making that a 55. And then this Sharpen right here stacks with the other Sharpen, giving me a second 55. And yeah, it's pretty busted. So imagine being able to triple stack your Weave Blade, which is like the most busted way to blade in the game right now. This is not a defensive piece. This contributes to me having a little bit of offense to the set. Again, it's not the greatest offense, but it's passable. I could have used this as well. The only issue is, so I still recommend Abomination, or if you want to go max resist, Heartsteel's still the only theme in the freaking game that has resist, which is kind of weird. You would think that at least the Ice School would get something in the higher levels eventually. Even if it's just them, or if they decide to do something for everybody and then they just make the value different based on school. I think we really need a new resist theme. Like, come on now. We need it bad, man. Also, before we go too far, I almost forgot to tell you where to get this. The Abomination theme, you get it from the Gray Man in his dungeon, which you can find in Graveholm. You just go to Graveholm, you go to his dungeon, and the Gray Man will drop you a thing. Honestly, worth it. Even for the hitting gear, it's worth it. I do recommend using a Sharpened Blade or a Potent Trap as your tier socket though, so that you can start triple stacking things. Because honestly, triple stacking buffs is more significant than that little bit of health. As for the amulet, the other hidden temple item, the Fit to Be Survivalist tag. This is the new highest resist amulet in the game, bar none. And the ice copy is the highest out of them all because, you know, it's Ice School. So you are seeing the official highest item in terms of amulet resist in the game. Nearly 700 health without sockets, 13 resist, a good amount of pip conserve, some block, and it has a square and a triangle. For this, it was really a question of, do I want perfect pip chance or did I want perfect accuracy? I opted for perfect accuracy because I think that if I never fizzle on death, despite being an ice as well, I think I could get more benefits in the long run. And plus, if you're using like Scarecrow anyway, and you happen to have 3 power pips and a fail pip, you could still use it. You get value that way. Otherwise, you'd be spending 8 pips on Scarecrow instead of 7. Keep that in mind. But yeah, Hidden Temple, that's where you get this. And now for the part that I switch out the absolute most. And this is what can determine what's immune. It's my rings. Now, you could use the Abomination ring to get the damage and the pierce and all that stuff for more offense. And when I did my Balour solo, I did actually use this. This Abomination ring, as is, that you see here with the Potent Trap, the Pierce, all that, This was actually what I used in the Malauer fight. But this is where I think I done moved. Because even though this allowed me triple stack a feint if I needed to, I think I could have gone away without triple stacking and still made it through. So that's where our old buddies from the Sardonyx and Chrysalis came through with those old resist rings, which when it comes to Abomination, the future tier here. Yeah, don't listen to past tier. Sometimes he's a bit of a goofball. Yeah, that ring that I was telling you about that Abomination ring, if you're gonna use that, you can get it from Sister Sanderson, who's a side quest boss. And she's dumb easy to do, too. Making the ring, like, the easiest thing to get. So if you want a little bit more damage, you could go for that, too. Otherwise, I still recommend the Sardonyx ring. I'll edit it in at some point whenever I go to figure this out. But anyways, the rings that I recommend for this build, I recommend these Sardonyx rings because this allows you to set resist against your actual opponent. In this case, you can see here I have all of them crafted, but they're not all in my bag right now. I have some in the vaults. But to give an example, you see I have 111 resist to balance. But if I wanted to, I could switch to 111 to go into in favor of life, or I could even go to 103 on ice if I wanted to. Another thing I could do is I could stat cap a third school, which in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And you can see it tries to go past 120 and it only really gets to 121 because those huge diminishing returns hit. But otherwise, I can stat cap 3 schools at the same time. Stat cap on 3, 109 to the 4th immune. It just depends on what you're fighting, so keep this in mind. I don't have all my jewels for all these rings yet, but that is the plan, is to get them. That's going to be one of my major things. Well, for now, the perfect version is on my fire ring, which has the weave jewels for pierce and the health. You get a good amount of health, you get insane single school resist, you get 20% incoming healing. This is pretty solid. But yeah, so these are pretty much where you get all that resist. Now I mentioned the Cold Rider set. This is the other piece, the Rude Goblin. It's right there too. It's the wand and the pet. As you can see, I have a ward pet. This has Proof and Defy as per usual, but it also has 4 school wards: Death, Fire, Myth, and I suck it at a storm. I did this because this gives 30 resist to 4 schools. Now you could go to 714, which all you would really need is just all the selfish talents in the world, all that stuff. This version right here, this Rude Goblin, this is a stat capped Rude Goblin in terms of its resist. You cannot get any more Defy than 7, and you cannot get any more Proof than 14. This is a stat capped double proof, like double resist pet. Which if you're looking for universal, this is how you do it. But otherwise, I recommend doing it like this because you get more to the specific schools. Yes, it's not universal, but it allows you to further set against them. Because you'll take even less damage. If they have pierce. If they don't, then the 100's good enough. Like the 100 resist is good enough against no pierce. But with how they're adding pierce and all that to enemies now, I recommend these types of pets instead. And to get this pet, you can either hatch it into Kiosk, I'm pretty sure, or if not, you get this from the Spiral Cup Gauntlet, which was actually the last Portal Apparel event, funny. That's not where I got this one, I got dumb lucky. But yeah, you can get it in the Spiral Cup Gauntlet, so keep that in mind. Obviously, most mounts are cosmetic. I don't have any stat mounts, so I don't have to stay here long. But there are stat mounts in the game. Ones with healing, ones with pierce. I'll be honest, if you have things your way, I recommend either a damage vulture or maybe the pierce mount. One of the two. Which yes, those do exist. Until then though, because all my stuff's cosmetic, for right now I'm using the Headless Horseman's Horse as my cosmetic mount because it happens to look really cool with my build. As for the deck, I'm using Monster Hide, which is where I am getting the square socket here. And I'm doing this because more health. Now, you could run Abomination to get the Pierce, to help add a little bit more to your offense, but this is a mostly fully defensive setup. So theoretically, you could go whichever route you want. It doesn't really matter too much, but I opted to go in favor of health and block and stuff. And the Pip Conserve 2 helps. The card you get from this is a Star Shield, which gives you a triple 50% shield, which is to life, death, and storm. So if you really needed it, you could use this to make sure they can't pierce. Like if you don't have stabilize, you could use this as a way to buy yourself time to try and pull one. Now I'm talking about as if everything has pierce in the game. Obviously, pierce doesn't start coming in until like late Arc 2 and onwards, but because we're in Arc 5 now, pierce is like a default to mobs and everything now. So that's where so that's why I'm going even harder on some of these numbers to try and counteract their pierce so that I take less damage. And on top of that, I have almost 17,000 health whenever I have the right things on. As for where you get the Abomination deck, you gotta get that from the Gray Man. You gotta get the deck from the Gray Man, and then you gotta craft it into the Monster Hide if you want the more defensive setup. But if you're okay with having the more offensive stuff here, then you can keep your Abomination as is. So that is everything, pretty much. So when it comes to all that, now you see that you can stat cap, you can get very hard set immunes, and it just really depends on the situation. Yeah, that means switching stuff around a lot, which for advanced content isn't great. So you really got to know what you have to set for in advanced if you're doing advanced combat. But otherwise, I think this is the most diabolical fucking build that you can find, because it counters pierce significantly, especially because if I feel like something has too much pierce or they know how to cast a spear or something, stabilize counters pierce, it counters spear cards, it just counters everything, it feels like, except for maybe Castle Darkmoor. But otherwise, yeah, this is cooking. So now that you've seen the build, now that you've seen how small the spell deck is, I'm probably going to go ahead and go find some random mob somewhere and showcase that this is what I'm going to call the Undying build. Because even the schools that aren't immune, you're taking so little damage as it is, and on top of it, because I'm weaved into death, I can also use Scarecrow, a triple-bladed, frenzied Scarecrow. Like, unless a fight is diabolically difficult, I do not see myself dying ever again. I might take damage here and there based on Pierce and schools and whatever else happens, but otherwise, I have the extra several thousand health. I have perfect accuracy to both my weave schools, and I have pretty solid Pierce to both. And if I'm ever in doubt, I could always throw in a spear, like a death spear, elemental spear. I did train those if I'm ever in doubt. But yeah, there we go. And you know what? Because I take so little damage now, I literally have time to pack these spears. Like, I have the time now because of how little damage I'm taking. And in the end, I could end up getting a bigger hit because I have to take longer, which again, that just really shows that as an ice wizard, you do have to have some level of patience. So I'm gonna go ahead and find some guy to kill somewhere. So hopefully you enjoy. Probably gonna go somewhere where there isn't a whole lot of blade counter, stuff like that, just because I want to see the damage I can pull. So we'll just have to see what happens. So until next time, my name is Tyr, and I will see you guys in the next video. Have a good night.
真的很好。